It is Both Sides Book Club. You're with Catie and Debbie.
Hi.
For any of you that are new to our podcast or to our book club, welcome. We're happy to have you read along with us.
Absolutely.
So today's episode, we are talking about Kokomo by Victoria Hannan, and holy smokes. If you have only just joined our book club now, this is the book you start on. Because
read it.
I know that we run a book club, and I know that I'm supposed to love every single one of these books that I'm saying.
You do love every book.
Which I do. However, Kokomo has really, really, really spoken to me, and I just really loved it. Loved it. And I felt that it was so universally relatable to everybody going through all different walks of life.
Can you give us a little recap about the book?
Absolutely. So Kokomo follows primarily the story of a mother and daughter, Elaine and Mina. And basically, Mina's father, Bill, dies, and Elaine, which is the mother, goes into a bit of a vortex where she doesn't leave her house.
At all. For 12 years.
Yes. Then one day, Mina's living away from home. Well, she's living in London overseas, and she gets a phone call to find out that her mother has actually been spotted leaving the house. So Mina goes, oh my gosh, what has happened? Jumps on a plane, drops her whole life, and goes and tries to unpickle and figure out what is going on in her mother's life, and what the catalyst was for her to leave her home.
But a mother does not necessarily welcome her home with open arms and go, this is what's happening.
So the story is about the intricacies of love, how important it is for all of us to love and feel loved, and that sometimes the way that we get taught this is how you do life isn't actually how life is done. And sometimes things are open-ended, and all we have are the lessons that we've learned from our experiences. So, yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely love it. Now, because we're the best.
We love the book so much.
We have a surprise for you all. We are so excited because we have the author,
Victoria Hannan,
who we are going to be zooming in 2 seconds. So we're going to have a chat to her and unpickle some of the themes in the book.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
How are you going? I'm Catie.
Hi.
I'm Debbie.
Hi. Nice to meet you both. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's amazing.
I've got nothing else to do.
But how's the six pack? We listened to you did, and that was one of your aspirations for the lockdown.
I think it's in there somewhere. It wants to come out, but hasn't yet. It's trying. It's hard. I have actually been. That's one of the things that I've been sticking to is like a pretty good exercise regime. So I try to run every day. And I have a medicine ball and like a resistance band, and I do a bunch of exercise in the backyard. So
amazing. That's amazing. Well, first off, thank you for writing Kokomo. Oh my gosh. I literally am obsessed with your book. It is so good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I feel actually bad running a book club because I feel like I'm supposed to like every single one of the books we read, but genuinely your book has been my favorite so far. It's just
that's so nice. Thank you.
It's so I feel like it's so relatable to so many different people. It's amazing. So thank you for writing it. You're clever.
Oh, thank you so much.
So to start off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Kokomo?
So I am a writer and a photographer living in Melbourne in lockdown at the moment, but hopefully not for too much longer. I started writing Kokomo in 2017. I was working at a pretty stressful advertising job for a very mean client. And actually, I think my boss was a bit of a psychopath too. Hopefully he'll never watch this. Actually, I don't care if he does.
Doesn't really matter.
But he'll probably, if he is a psychopath, he'll probably get off on it.
It's true.
And I was just so stressed that I was just miserable, and I was crying at my desk and my hair was falling out, and I was like, I have to change my life. Like, I can't live like this. And I already had the idea for Kokomo, kind of just the bare bones of it, or the butt of it, in my head. And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for a bunch of writing residencies around the world. And if I get into one, I will quit my job and I'll go and write the novel.
Amazing.
And I got into one in Brazil. And so I quit my job and I flew to South America on my own and traveled around for a little bit, and then ended up spending a month on a tropical island writing a novel.
That's amazing. How was Brazil? Did you love it?
It was just remarkable. I spent about 10 days in Rio first, and it was one of the most beautiful, colourful, vibrant, incredible places I've ever been. I was just like walking around the streets just like crying with joy because I loved it so much. And also because I wasn't at my job anymore.
Well, you were in Rio last year.
I work I'm actually a photographer. So I did a job over in Saquarema, which is, I think it's like 4 hours north, I think, of Rio. But yeah, I had the same sort of experience going to Rio into Brazil and just going, oh my gosh, it is so vibrant and full of energy, and just you can't help but just go, oh my gosh.
Yeah, every time you turn a corner, it's like sort of crumbling and the jungle is right there, and it's just like, can't believe it's real.
Yes. So because of your sort of experiences working in a advertising firm in London, how much of Mina's characters, the main character in the book, how much of your experiences shaped her experiences?
Only some truth to the experiences that she had, particularly in advertising. So I worked in a lot of agencies in London because I lived over there for about 10 years. And a lot of the wilder stories and the crazy things that have happened to Mina that you can't think are possibly true, they're actually mostly based on true stories. And I probably can't say too much or I'll get sued. But, there was some pretty crazy stories going around and pretty wild things that happened, and especially like doing pictures and staying up all night. I remember one day I was going into work at about 8:30 in the morning. And we worked quite near to a pub that was part of the borough market, which is open from all hours that the market workers can go to the pub early when they finish their shifts. And I saw some colleagues of mine having a knockoff drink at 8:30 in the morning because they'd just been at work all night. And so I stood there all night. So I stood there with my coffee and had coffee with them while they had their knockoff drink.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, it's like long hours, but a lot of fun sometimes. But I think, like, really any woman that has had a job in an office has probably had that experience where they've had kind of an unqualified man be promoted over them. I think that's a pretty like universal experience. And I have definitely felt that before and had that. And it's so disheartening and infuriating. And I feel like Mina had it done to her before, and then she was promised that she had all of these promises made to her, and that was one of the reasons why she moved to London. She was kind of promised the world, and then it just turned out to be the same old thing, just in a different city. It's so frustrating, and like there's just nothing that you can do except speak up, and then you become the person that's always complaining. And I've had that experience before. It's like, here she goes again. Like, what's she complaining about this time? Absolutely.
Why, on that point, why didn't you have Mina step up and say something to her boss when it all happened, it all went down?
I feel like she kind of, and this is a bit of a spoiler for people who haven't read the book yet.
I just came to my mind then, and I was like, oh, actually, I'm interested now.
Yeah. I think she kind of does by just saying, like, the ultimate, excuse me, like, no thank you, and just she resigns. That's the ultimate way of saying, like, I don't want a part of this. But I think she's had a pretty big week back at home, and the last thing that she has energy for is just talking to another man that probably isn't going to listen to what she has to say. And so she just decides the easiest way, which is probably not the best way of handling it, but the easiest way is to just go like, I'm closing that book completely. That one's done. I'm going to worry about all these other problems that I have in my life or that I've just created in my life.
Yeah,
so.
because in that environment, I mean, she's not necessarily going to go back to London at that point. And as you said, then nothing's actually going to change. Yeah. Her Jack is not going to get unpromoted. I mean, so
yeah, that's true.
So in many ways, I think it's actually the best way of dealing with it is just going like, no, I'm not going to be a part of it.
I guess she could have, if she did want to go back to London, she could have applied for a new job and probably found one quite easily because she's very qualified.
Yeah.
But it's just that she would have had to go and kind of pick up her things and face all of those people. And I just think that she just doesn't need that in her life, at least not at this point.
Yeah.
No.
So speaking of men,
yes.
you have a fantastic hook at the beginning of the story.
You do. I mean, I have to say.
I jigged Mum up. I was like, Mum, you asked the question.
That's fine. I can ask the question. That's perfectly fine.
So the question is?
It is such a great, and again, for those people that haven't read the book yet, I'm not going to give too much away about it, other than the opening chapter of the book starts with a description of the active male anatomy.
Just say it. Just say it. Starts with describing a beautiful penis. It's okay to say that on camera.
You're making it worse by just dancing around it.
I know. It's a generational thing. It's fine.
It starts off describing a beautiful big dick.
It does. Yeah.
Tell us about this.
So that chapter, it came quite late. So I think I wrote it maybe after the second draft of the book, and I was standing on a train platform on my way to work, and it just kind of appeared in my mind, and I wrote it on, as they do sometimes, and I wrote it just on the notes app on my phone while I was waiting for the train to go to work, and it just made me laugh a lot. And I probably shouldn't admit to how much I laugh at my own jokes, but I just thought it was like very funny and very silly and very weird. And just that in itself just made me think like, okay, I think I'm onto something. And I feel like it was a really good introduction to Mina's mindset at that kind of juncture of her life. Like, this is a thing that she has wanted for so long.
Yes.
And she's so obsessed with it. And then like she thinks that she's in love. She thinks that this is happiness. And then actually it turns out that the other thing that she has wanted for so long, which is her mum leaving the house, has also happened. And so she kind of has to choose. And she does, and that's where the novel starts.
But I think it was so clever the way in which you describe the penis, because I
love so much that sentence has just been uttered to me. Like, makes me feel like my life is going very well,
because it is, you display it verbally in all its glory, and it's just an indication of the way that Mina is mythologizing it. Is that she's building up this relationship that she thinks is the real thing, into be this sort of epic, poetic, huge sort of thing, and you encompass that by your description of the penis, which is just quite frankly brilliant, and it's funny, and it's so funny. I mean, I think
too,
with laughter.
As the reader, I loved it because, in a way, I've used a kind of a similar technique when I photograph people or I have to do portraiture. I do not like talking to them about their job or their work or whoever the person is. I kind of try and think of something that can immediately break down any prejudice or any barriers. So I'd be like, I don't know.
Think of something.
How big's your penis? No, not really. But something, that's the first thing that came to my mind. But it does the same thing. So when I read your book, I felt like immediately I was like, any sort of, because you have got quite a well-deserved hype around your book. But I think as a reader, when you read that, you kind of all of a sudden go, okay, hold on. What are we reading here? It's really awesome. So
a lot of the, as Catie's just said, congratulations on winning the Victoria Premier's Award for the unpublished manuscript for this, and I know that this book has been very widely anticipated. We received a copy of it, quite a few months ago, and there's been a lot of a lot of press about the book, but a lot of the reviews have been saying that, this is a millennial novel, and that in a way I kind of find that quite confusing, because I think the themes of the book, the searching for.
It's so universal.
I think is universal, and I don't think that they are issues that necessarily just refer to millennials. I mean, what is your response to that?
Tag is such a funny one. I think partly it's just there for people to try and place it in the other, like if you're in a bookshop and there's a million books on the shelf, you kind of need those little catchphrases or those little catch-alls to kind of try and identify where one particular book sits in amongst those. So in some ways I don't pay that much attention to it, because it's kind of like calling things genre. They're all just stories and they're all just books.
Yes.
But I do think the kind of struggle and that feeling of sort of life not going as you expected it is very universal. And yeah, just because it's kind of about a young woman, it doesn't mean that there's not something in there that older people or younger people can take away from it, or men also, for example. Sure. I feel like it's very much, I mean, women, the kind of market for fiction is largely women anyway, and the readers of fiction is largely women. But, and I hope that the cover doesn't kind of make men think that's not for them, because I do think that they could probably learn a lot from this book too, how not to behave. So I do hope that people don't kind of read the millennial tag and think that it's not for them, but I do also just try not to take too much notice of those kind of things.
Yeah, to me it just felt so universal, because I think at the core of it, well, for me anyway, I felt that the core of it was about love and like the complexity of that. And, not just love for a spouse, but love for a parent or love for your friends. And like, it's not just, a simple, straightforward line, exactly what you sort of were saying about this is like, life just kind of happens. But in that, there's so much complexity. And I think what your story really does tell is how important it is to be loved, and also how important it is to love in many ways. Was this something that you were thinking about when you were writing all of the different relationships?
One of the things that I feel like I wanted to get across more than anything was just how love doesn't always have to look like we've been told it's supposed to look. And so, you have your familial love, but more often than not, families don't look like this picture perfect idea that we've been sold into by popular culture and the media.
Yeah.
Some people have two mums or two dads or step parents and blended families. And, I think the same with romantic love. I think this book hopefully shows people that it can take a bunch of different paths and it can look completely different. And that's okay. And I think one of the other things that I really wanted people to see is just the importance of friendship. I have often called this book a love letter to friendship. And I think that friendship between women particularly can often be written about as if it's like competitive or catty. But I just really wanted to show that those kind of female friendships and those bonds are so important, and that your friends can be like your chosen family.
I think particularly when you've lived away from home, the kind of that obviously you lived in London for a long time, and we as a family moved around a lot. And Catie and her partner Jay work overseas a lot. Well, when they can, not this year. Not this year. Normally,
in a way, I've actually done what Mina's done. Is I've actually come back to the place that I grew up. So it's been very weird.
Do you think that moving away makes you appreciate home more when you do come back. How did you feel about that when you came back from London? Did you slot back into relationships with obviously with your family, but also with friends that you'd had before you went away?
Like Mina, I had a kind of period of readjustment, and there were some relationships that felt more disconnected than others. So I have actually had never lived in Melbourne before. My family's originally from, my family's in Adelaide.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I was coming back to a whole new city, but I did already have a bunch of friends here from when I lived in Australia who I'd kept in touch with. So I had like a fairly smooth transition back into life in Australia. But of course, there's still moments where you're just like, what am I doing here? Which side of the escalator am I meant to stand on? What is the brand name for this particular thing? And just these moments of just like, I can't remember what country I'm in. And there's obviously always going to be friendships where you've spent a lot of time kind of liking each other's Instagram pictures from afar, but you actually haven't really stayed connected. And so you come back together and start spending time together, and you realize that your lives are on like quite different paths, which is fine. That just happens. Like people change and move on. But I think you can often find yourself really trying to hang on to those friendships for dear life. And sometimes you maybe just need to let them go and be content with the friendships that you had in the past and not try and hang on for dear life. In terms of family, I think that was hard as well, because I lived, I think, in a different city from my family for almost 15 years. So, and I obviously still do, but I do spend more time with them now. And so there's definitely a bit of disconnection there and a bit of like reacquaintance that had to happen.
Yeah.
Just like remembering, where mum likes to keep certain things around the house and not putting them in the wrong place or I'll get in trouble, things like that.
It's just when you were speaking before, it really struck me when you were talking about, being brought up or growing up in a world where we're told this is how we do families and this is how you're supposed to do a relationship and this is how you're supposed to do friendship and whatever. And I just wonder, like, from Arthur's point of view, is like, in a way, I felt like Elaine was, when she opened up and she started to talk about, that she's loved this guy forever and, this sort of fleshing that out. I just wonder, I wonder why was it from Arthur's point of view that we didn't get a little bit more of a glimpse into how he felt. I mean, obviously he opened up in the end, and she was the first person. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that hasn't listened to the story.
You just give it all away.
No, I haven't. But I'm interested to know why you chose not to explain that part of the story.
It was because I wanted it to be very much from the two women's point of view. And I really liked the idea that you don't always know what's going on with the other person. And we saw Elaine's side of the story, and maybe that wasn't actually the whole truth.
Right.
And she possibly even lied to herself about certain things that had happened or things that had been said. And I feel like Arthur, and this is very spoilery, so people turn away now if you haven't read it, he dangled a carrot in front of her for 20, 30 years.
Yes.
And I don't know that he's actually like the best man in the world. And I think that
This is what I felt. Thank you for saying that, because I was like, you knob, like just just tell her you love her or you don't love her, but like you are literally making her dangle, like you're doing this like for her whole life.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that Jack was doing to Mina.
Yeah, I know,
it was just they were both behaving the same way, but so many people were like, oh, Arthur it seems so great, and he's like, well, he's hot.
No, well, actually, no, he's not. And again, I loved that. Sorry, I'm just flitting all over the place here, but I had to say that I really loved the parallels there between Mina's relationship with Jack and Elaine's with Arthur, in that, because obviously the book deals with social media, and we were just talking about friendship and the difference between Insta friendships and real friendships, and just in the same way that Mina was obsessively scrolling through her phone and trying to see what Jack was doing, you know, Elaine did exactly the same thing by buying a house opposite.
Actually,
there was so, you know, and I thought, that's exactly what she's doing. I mean, she's got the light, she's got the scroll of Arthur's family.
We had somebody that is in our book club and was sent us in a whole bunch of questions that she would love to know from you as well. But one of the things was like, you know, questioning the mental stability of Elaine by buying the house across the road, but what you've literally just said, it is no different. It's just a generational thing.
It's just a generational thing.
It seems much less crazy when Mina does it because no one can see her doing it. But if she didn't have social media, she probably would have bought the house next door to Jack.
Yes. Or rode the bicycle down the road.
But I relate to that. I mean, I remember as a teenager in the UK when I was studying for the equivalent of my HSC. So I was at home, supposedly studying in my bedroom. There was a guy who lived down the road who was a couple of years older than me.
I don't know the story.
And we kind of like, you know, we flirted a bit and whatever. And I liked him, and he used to come home. He used to drive home every day for lunch, and I would totally lie on my bed, looking out the window, trying to see him. I mean, it's the same kind. You know, I think it is. I think it's. In Elaine's case, perhaps it was a little excessive, but I do think, you know, it is a fairly normal tendency.
It's not, but I think back to the point of Arthur dangling the carrot, I don't think it is that excessive, because Arthur, like, for all Elaine knows, she could be completely convinced that he will, you know, leave his wife and whatever, but you just don't know, and that's why I don't think it is that. Carry on.
I was going to say, I don't even think that she necessarily wants him to leave Valerie, because that's her best friend. Like, she doesn't want to hurt her friend. She just has this instinct of wanting to be closer to him.
Yeah, I think,
and she's doesn't know why, and she can't explain it. And I don't know that the ideal outcome for her is that Arthur leaves Valerie and chooses Elaine. She's not really sure. She's just like Mina a bit. She's just kind of flailing. Yeah. And then when Bill dies, the one thing that she can think to do is just like hook herself, like anchor herself to Arthur, and then that's what she does, and her grief kind of manifests in that quite weird way. My friend called it quite gothic. She thought it was very gothic, the way that Elaine kind of just anchored herself and bunkered down and decided to obsess about this one person.
Yeah, Miss Havisham sitting there with in her wedding dress with everything crumbling around her. Yeah.
So we're talking about the two different stories here. So why I really enjoyed opening up from Mina's point of view, and then it flips. So can you tell us a little bit about that writing style and why you did choose to tell the two stories?
I wrote of Kokomo was all from Mina's perspective, and I got a bit annoyed by her. It was just like too much, and I knew that I had to change something, but I wasn't sure what it was yet, and I tried to do it in like a different voice. I tried like second person and all sorts of different things, because it was originally written in first person as well.
Yeah. All right.
And then when I wrote the second draft, I got about halfway through and I just realized that I had a whole extra section of the story to tell, and that was from Elaine's point of view. And so I sort of felt a bit miserable about that at first. I was like, I thought I was almost done. Yeah. And I realized I had so much more work to do. Yeah. So I let myself kind of wallow in misery for half a day, and then I got back to work the next day and started to write from Elaine's point of view. And the minute that I did, I felt like the whole story opened up and it really gave it so much more heart and depth.
Yes.
So I think the Elaine section early on was actually quite short, and then I did a lot of work in the editing process and added something like an extra 15 or 20,000 words, mostly in Elaine's section, to kind of build out her past.
It was such an important thing to read. I agree with what you're saying. It gave it a heartbeat, basically. And I think the thing, which is why I keep going back to it being for me, such a universal themed book, is because you know, we are all three of us are daughters of mothers. And so often you don't know, I mean, you just grow up going, oh, this is my mum. No matter what age you are, you know, it doesn't matter how old you are, you still go, oh, that's just mum. Where you go, oh, actually, she was just trying to figure it all out just the same. Or dad was just trying to figure it all out just the same. Or it's so...
Or may still be trying
figuring
to.
it out.
Yeah.
And the same goes back to, you know, with friends too. It's you don't actually know what other people are going through, and you can't create, like, as much as you create stories of what actually went on, it's not until you have those conversations, or which are not necessarily on a timeline, like they just randomly pop up. I mean, we're
all intrinsically egocentric.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess that's the whole part of the coming of age, isn't it? Of actually truly becoming an adult, where you begin to see that there are other people in the world who
one would hope you would get that. There are a lot of people that don't get that skill.
This is true. You know, and for me, the whole Elaine section just highlighted that so beautifully with Mina. I think you're right. Not that I want to, because I'm not criticizing the book at all. I mean, I adored it, but I think you're right that if it had been purely from Mina's perspective, then yeah, we would probably have got quite irritated with her. But the fact that you've got that contrast of Elaine there, and through her narrative, we also see Mina. And I think that's what I liked about Elaine's narrative, is that it wasn't just Elaine's narrative. We also had Mina in there as well. So we were finding more about Mina and about their relationship that I thought, you know, worked so well.
I think it leaves you with a lesson to have grace for the people that are around you, and to be, you know, to remind yourself to have grace for other people's journeys and other people's stories, because no matter how close you are with someone, you're not that person. It's like you can't judge another relationship because you're not in that relationship, you know.
One of the things that was really important to me was to have Elaine at the beginning of the book, through Mina's eyes, seem quite one-dimensional and quite frustrating. Because that's just the way that she's felt about her for the kind of 7 years that she was away, and even the 5 years before that when she was at home and just like hitting a brick wall trying to get through to her. And then I really wanted Elaine to open up in her section so that you can see, like, of course she has an inner life, and of course there's a reason for her behaviour that is much deeper than Mina will ever understand. And I think it was important also to see what Mina's relationship with her mum was like before all of this happened and before her dad died, and also to see how Bill fit into the family as well. And like, he was a lovely man, but maybe not the perfect husband or the perfect father, because such a thing doesn't exist. And so I think, seeing all of those pieces of the puzzle come together from everybody's different point of view really made it a whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the story kind of ends a little bit loose. Do you want to tell us about that?
I love things that are open-ended. That, like, I don't like reading a novel or seeing a film where everything's tied up with a bow. It just doesn't feel real to me. Okay. And I kind of find it frustrating when everyone's just gone, okay, and that's it, the end. It was all a dream, the end.
Yes. And then I woke up.
And so there was never any question in my mind that this would be a bit of an open-ended ending. Like I would have to have written so much more to try and tie it all up in a bow, and I just didn't want to keep thinking about the characters. I was like, okay, I'm done now. They can have this dinner party, and then they're on their own. They can sort themselves out after this.
So would you consider revisiting them?
No, we're done.
You're done. That's it. Finished.
Yeah. But someone was joking about maybe having a spin-off, which is a book about Lottie, the unseen third Cheng daughter.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like her. I think she's a fun character. But no, I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. But it's I'm excited to ask you next.
Yeah, that was a great segue, by the way.
But I want to go back because we actually did have quite a few people writing in on our Instagram going, well, like, what happens to Mina? Like, what happens next? And all of this. But exactly what you've just said makes it go back into my mind and go, okay, yes, it felt open-ended because I feel like that's what life is. It's a series of lessons and a series of growth that you actually never, ever get a happy ending. You just get to another series of growth or another series of experience. You know, that is life. And exactly what you said before, it doesn't come like wrapped in a bow and go, okay, this is life done now.
It does.
Like, that's awesome.
I often tell myself that if everything in life is going to plan, then you're not doing it right.
Yes.
It just seems like boring if you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you do it and everything goes perfectly. It's just, you've got to, I don't know, mess things up every so often and try something new and fail and keep going and do something else.
That's amazing.
Yeah, totally.
We're going to post that on Instagram, quote by Victoria Hannan. Life is going to plan, you're not doing it right. Amazing. So,
so we know that you're writing, so have you finished writing the next manuscript, or it's still a work in progress? So tell us about that.
So I signed a 2-book deal with Hachette, my publisher, because I had an idea early on when I signed that. And so I'm 2 drafts into that manuscript, and it needs a lot of work and it's quite ambitious structurally. So and sort of the publicity for Kokomo has been taking up quite a lot of my time. So I think in the next couple of weeks I'm going to start back on the next thing.
Amazing. Would you ever consider adapting Kokomo to a screenplay? I feel like it would make a really cool film. Yes. So there have been some conversations happening around that, but I can't. Nothing confirmed. Yeah. So maybe one day, hopefully. I feel like it could be a really beautiful and complex story, like to be told on film, I think.
I feel like it was quite filmic when I was writing it, because I have written ads and things like that before and have always wanted to write a screenplay. And so there were times when, I think I'm quite a visual writer. And so when I'm writing a scene, I can see it in my head. Exactly. So particularly, like, I think the fancy dress party that they go to, that I actually started writing that as a script first. That was part of a TV show that I was trying to write. And then I was like, no, I'm going to put that in this other thing. That I think there are definitely parts in there which I can already see in my head as a film or TV show.
Yeah, I felt like it was very visual. Even that the section in the book where Mina sleeps with
Brendan.
Yes. And then they're in that like dingy like downstairs area. I was like, that is so visual. I'm imagining the smell.
It's the smell. I was thinking exactly that. It was the smell.
I don't know. It just like smells of like condoms and like weird things. I don't know. I actually want to challenge you. I just had an idea. Do you know, because you're a photographer as well, aren't you?
Yes.
I would love to see Kokomo as a photo journal, like a little coffee table book in photo form.
Oh, wow.
I would love that. I reckon you could do that so well. Like, like telling the story, but just through like photos. I think you could do that really, really well. I think that would be really, really interesting.
Talk to my publisher and try and get an advance for that.
Yeah, perfect. I'll phone them up.
I'll take 10% for the idea.
I have to travel to London.
Louise, Victoria needs some more money, please.
And my travel expenses and a cure for coronavirus so I can go overseas, please.
Totally.
Yeah. No worries. Well, I'll just slide you over my account details and BSB for my 10% commission. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Amazing.
Actually, on the topic of that, I have thought in the past that I would love to do a book of fiction which has photographs in it too, and I haven't worked out how that would work yet, but one day that will definitely happen.
Yeah, I feel like if there's, I feel like you would be able to do that really well. Well, from what I've spoken to you and from the way that you write, I feel like it is very visual and sensory, but I feel like it is very photographic, almost like a photographic memory book in a way. We've spoken to some other authors that have also, Sophie Hardcastle, she's got synesthesia, and we spoke to her, and when you read her book, Below Deck, it felt very sensory too, but in a very different way. Whereas yours, I feel like it's full of light and I know this isn't your photograph, but that to me feels like what Kokomo is. It's like full of this little like light that's filtering through, and I don't know. Now I'm sounding a bit weird now, but that's how I feel your book feels when I read it. It feels warm and fuzzy.
That's such a lovely thing to hear, because I'm so interested in a lot of my photography is all natural light, and so I'm always kind of looking in a room at where the light is falling and how it looks.
Yeah.
So for that to come across in the way I write is like, that feels great to hear. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you understood what I was saying.
No, I totally, absolutely do, for sure.
So what comes out? So what comes next? The book comes next. Do you have any more plans other than getting out of your room?
I have started thinking about, I know what the third book is going to be about, and I'm really excited to start researching it, but I have to finish the second one first. So, I also have a screenplay that I would like to write. Lots of plans.
So actually, that was one other thing I was going to ask you. You hate research.
Oh, I hate research.
Is this true that you actually don't enjoy research?
I think I'm lazy. Like, one of the reasons why I set Kokomo in Thornbury is because I was living in Preston and it was just over the road, and so I could, just research it that way. And one of the most annoying things in writing this book for me was going back to the Elaine parts, which were set in the 80s, and just making sure that I got things right. I just found that so tedious. And I didn't want anybody to kind of write to me and go, well, actually, this street looked like this, and there was no phone box at that station at that point. So I was that was quite challenging for me to do that. But I think the research that I have to do for book 3 is stuff that I'm really already interested in.
Okay.
So I don't think that will be too hard.
Too much of a
wood.
problem.
I say that now. Ask me again in 2 years' time.
We will. We will.
Well, that's probably about it for us. So thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you. That was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And from us and from all of our readers, I mean, everybody has, has just told us how much they are enjoying the book. And we both absolutely adored it. So congratulations. And we very much look forward to reading the second one. So you better hurry up, please.
Okay, yes, I will. It's called Marshmallow, just for a little tidbit there.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay, well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for your support as well. It means so much.
It is our pleasure. And may you sell lots and lots of copies.
Thank you.
Anyone that is listening to this, buy Kokomo, because it is epic and you will not regret it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Great sales pitch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Bye.
Have
a good day. Bye.
I so enjoyed that.
That was epic.
Thanks again, Victoria. You were amazing. We loved talking to you, and we hope you escape from your room very, very soon. And we'd love to talk to you again at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that everybody who followed along and listened to this episode had some of your questions answered, and it tied some of those loose ends up for you and taught you that sometimes they have to be let loose.
That's right. Not everything is neat.
Yes. So it's that time of the episode where we are wrapping it up and introducing our next book for September.
Okay, so our next book is The Yield by Tara June Winch. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you'll know that this was one of the books we suggested for July, and so many of you voted for it that we decided that it had to be done. Since actually the time that you voted on it, it's gone on to win the Miles Franklin Award, which is
pretty big deal.
Yeah, the most prestigious literary award in Australia. So now it's not only won the New South Wales Premier's Award, it won the Stella Award this year, and it's also won the Miles Franklin. So this is a pretty good book.
Pretty big deal.
It's a pretty big deal. So huge congratulations to Tara. and we hope that you all enjoy reading it. So just to give you a little bit of an intro into the book, it's the story, it's set in Australia, in Western New South Wales, and it's the story of August Gondawindi, who is living overseas when she hears that her grandfather, Albert Poppy, has died. So she comes back to Australia. That's a similar theme to Kokomo. She comes back to Australia, reunites with her family, and it's the story of dispossession, about reclaiming heritage, about the importance of language as August tries to stop the mining company that are trying to take over her family's land from being able to do so. So it's an absolutely exquisitely written book and such important themes, and I hope you enjoy reading it.
Amazing, everybody. So thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Happy reading. We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did, please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.